What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my workbench. Dan here. As always, in today's video we're going to be covering all of the projects completed this month of February of 2024, and the month has flown by very fast yet again, and I've accumulated quite a bit more rolling stock to work on, and also have done some rolling stock that I've ended up selling off, or I'm in the process of getting ready to sell off. And I'm going to be showing you guys a little mix of cars that I'm working on, and also a locomotive that I'm prepping as well. So I'm actually going to start this video off by talking about the locomotive, and you guys will have to bear with my voice here. I had a pretty nasty sinus infection for a couple weeks, and ended up losing my voice completely. So it's still kind of coming back, but not completely. So just bear with me here. I've been working on a couple different engines, and actually one of the engines I worked on recently is the CSX B40-8. Now, this is not something I would normally model, but in this case I actually did this for a friend in exchange for a piece of brass rolling stock that he had. It was an old tank car that I ended up choosing to repaint. And so this is kind of an exchange deal where, hey, I weather this for him and he gives me a free brass model. So I did this and two hoppers for him. And this is 5954. It's an ex-Conrail B40-8W. And with this engine, what I did, well, actually it's a straight B40-8, not a wide cab. That's a standard cab, excuse me. For this guy, I kept it kind of simple because he models early 2000s CSX, kind of 90s era into 2000s transition, and then up into YN2, early YN2. So with this one, I try to keep it like a relatively fresh repaint. It's just got the standard bit of road grime on it, as you can see. With this engine, I've changed a couple details, like added the appropriate horn, changed some antennas on the roof, for example, upgraded some of the details on the trucks. It's in the process of being weathered right now, as you can see. I just added the plow-mounted ditch lights. I got the windows masked off. I still got to add the numbers to the number boards, both ends. Didn't do too much else detail-wise. These are actually pretty nicely detailed out of the box, I will say. Added the road grime, the base road grime to the trucks, the fuel tank. You can see I've already modeled some of the scrapes on the fuel tank. Faded the YN2 paint a little bit, added some road grime to the decks, the walkways. So the trucks, the pilots, and everything are kind of prepped right now for their oil and acrylic and mud splatter and everything else. So it's just kind of in the base effects of weathering, where I'm just starting to go in there and start applying more brush work to kind of finish it off. But it's getting there. It's just about finished. So again, yeah, custom numbers on the cab. I just got to finish sealing those in, and then lots of exhaust soot and grime on the roof. There's even a little bit of paint chipping and peeling already from the heat damage. As you can see, it's a little bit hard to see, very faded, but you can actually see some of that paint peeling just starting. And then I also painted the roof white because originally this was blue, matching the YN2 blue. So this guy's coming along here. I just got to, like I said, finish a couple things up, and then I'll finish the numbers, finish sealing all the decals in, and finish all the underbody work. I also applied a crap ton of warning labels to this thing, because a lot of these stock models, a lot of times they don't have a lot of the warning labels, so I went in there and added a couple warning labels with various microscale decal sheets. Moving on to some other projects that are mine, I have various covered hoppers that I'm working on. Covered hoppers, when I sell them, are usually my bread and butter, so I have a couple cars I'm going to be selling, and I have a few cars that I'm probably going to end up keeping. The first one I'm going to show you guys right now is a Milwaukee Road, former Milwaukee Road 4750, just in the process of being weathered up here. I spent a lot of time doing the oil buildup, some airbrush blending, doing the paint patching for the Milwaukee Road, which is starting to peel, rusted up placards, the old ACI label, prepping the roof area. You can see a lot of patchy rust up there, if we can see that real quick. And pretty much the same thing on the opposite side here. I'm trying to be really careful because some of this oil is still fresh. You can see those really heavy patches of rust and lots of that running rust and some of that peeling paint coming off some of that patchwork. Notice the emphasis on a lot of the scrapes on the ribs, if you can see any of that. Kind of can't really see it in the shot. It's kind of chunky. I still got to touch a lot of this up. This is just the base weathering effect for the patchwork. It's just really rough and crappy looking right now, but I got to add a lot more fine dot work and things like that. This is just base weathering work with brush techniques, and like I said, a little bit of spot filling where needed. The underbody is getting prepped right now. I got to add some detail parts to the bays. because on this Tangent car they actually don't have the shaker pads, so I got to add those to these bays. But other than that, it's a Tangent car, older Tangent, kind of harder to find, and the detail's really nice. On the ends you got the kick-up splatter, everything like that. All that's pretty much prepped, so there's a lot of the really heavy lift weathering done already. It's just going to have to come down now to doing some fine detailing, and of course adding decals, patchwork, final details, reinstalling the trucks, finishing the underbays, like I said, decal work. All that's going to have to come later. But this is a nice car that's in the works right now. This is going to be one of mine for my Soul Train. And then if I can actually pull these over here, I'll start with this guy. I have a Trinity 5161. I recently got this guy at a train show, Timonium train show in Maryland. I attended a few weeks ago. I believe 3 weeks ago now, possibly 4 weeks. I've kind of lost track of time, to be honest. A little piece of fuzz there, bear with me here. So I got a 3-pack of these Trinity covered hoppers with the intention of making all these to sell, and this one right here that I've done so far is kind of one I'm second guessing, because I do really like the patchwork, but I gotta really decide. I still have one more of these left out of the patch, or the 3-car set that I was intending to patch, so maybe I'll make a second one of these. But the first one here is I'm definitely going to try to sell. As you can see, I've replicated some really unique rust on it, got some custom decal patchwork done, added the graffiti to the sides, little bits of older graffiti mixed with new, kind of newer scribble, and then all of the rust and everything was built up with a sponge, a cosmetic sponge just like this, using a combination of different oil colors. And I've also gone in, and as you can see, the rust works around these weld seams. But this is just base effects. I had to blend this out a little bit with an airbrush and some washes to kind of clean it up a little bit. So again, it's just in the baby stages of weathering, so all this will get blended in quite a bit more when the car is actually completed. But so far I've gotten a lot of those base weathering effects done, and I've gotten a lot of the graffiti painted on the sides, and all the decal patchwork is finished. Those are custom decals by Circus City Decals. I've also got the decals installed on the ends, and I've just started to do some airbrush work and kick-up work and things like that to just get the ends prepped. As you can see, one end is heavier than the other. I thought that was really interesting, and I gotta obviously go in there and do a lot more oil work and acrylic work and dot work and everything else to the sides of this one. But this is just the base effects. Added the safety striping as well, but so far this one has been my favorite. The second one, well, I better not actually set it on its side. Again, fresh oil here, so it's still kind of drying up. I actually applied it 2 days ago. The second car here is going to be a grain car, and as you can see, I've done much heavier sponge work to the sides on this one. There's the original car number. That's obviously going to get patched and changed. I'm trying to decide if I want to make this an NAHX or a CGTX or an NDYX. I'm not exactly sure, but as you can see, I've applied the oils to the sides and on both sides. So this is pretty much prepped, and it's got a little bit of acrylic filler and things like that applied, and then again the ends have been prepped, but other than that there's still a lot more work that needs to be done to both these cars to actually get them ready to sell, because both of these cars are going to probably go up on eBay sometime soon, hopefully. They'll go up on eBay, I'll sell them off. I've been selling a couple things on there again. I've kind of taken a little bit of a hiatus so I can build up a fleet of cars to sell for you guys. But when I do list these, I'll try to let you guys know either on Facebook, Instagram, or I'll make another video here on YouTube of things to sell so you guys can stay tuned for these. Now moving on to some completed models, I've been working on a small fleet of these 4-bay grain cars, like I've said before, and one of the ones I recently got done is this MWCX car. 6646 is based off a real car which I actually saw recently here in Findlay, Ohio, and I wanted to model one that had the really interesting rust buildup on the side. So this was all done again with the same technique that I used to model that 5161 we showed a second ago, by masking off the weld seams, doing sponge work to the sides by taking a cosmetic sponge like this loaded with oil, blotching it on the sides to build that color up, and then taking the tape off. And once all that dries, then you apply your washes down the sides, and then you can go in and do all your fine little side scrapes, little dots, impact marks, and all that other good stuff layered over it. So it's a layered process, right? And it creates this really nice effect, and honestly this car's really come out well. I added the safety striping, and if we take a look at the sides, you can see a lot more of that rust in detail. You can see a lot of the fine rust dots and pits and scrapes and scratches. You can see the custom MWCX decals which I added. Those are all done according to prototype photos, or rather the similar prototype photos of cars and how they generally will do them. They like to do a lot of this I guess you'd call it compressed letter font decal, so I use Smokebox Graphics decals to do that. And then again, there's all the fine dot and scrape and pit work, pretty much normally seen on these grain cars. Lots of rust on the top, lots of grain streaking and spillage on those top hatches around the walkways there as well. And then on the opposite side of the car, you pretty much have the exact same thing. On this side, unfortunately, what happened was a part of the side got compressed into the paper towel it was resting on. It actually fell over. And so to try to fix some of the damage, I ended up having to go back, and I actually had to apply a little bit more oil than I normally would. So it's kind of wonky. You can see some of it's a little bit more uneven, but that is something you do see on cars like this. I'm still happy with the way it turned out. It was just kind of a happy accident of sorts, but I wanted to point that out. So you can see the little dots on the sides, all the scrapes and little impact marks and things like that you generally see on these cars. Again, safety striping added, and then all the grime and rust on the underbase, lots of grime and rust. Nicely weathered trucks, couplers, and then on the ends of the car you can see all that nice grime and everything built in the underbay there. All the decal work, some of that sponge work just starting to work on the ends there, as you can see. But personally, I think it came out really nice, and I really like it personally. This was kind of a prototype car to see if it looks right, if it's something that I wanted to keep, and I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and sell this one. And then later on I'll go back and make another one of these, because I've actually located and purchased a few of these 5701 and 5800 type covered hoppers, which this one is a 5701. So I'm going to go back and make another one of these later on, but this was a good practice car to try the techniques out and see exactly what I want out of one of these. So that's the MWCX 6646 there. Keeping things brief on these guys, I don't have too much to talk about these. These are just two more unit cars that I'm going to be adding to my unit Coltrane here. These are recently acquired CEFX patch out Atlas Trainman Bethgons. Not as detailed cars, but they do work well for unit trains, and Trainman has modeled some of the unique CEFX versions and patch outs and Furix cars and various other roads. And I particularly need CEFX cars, so I ended up getting a pair of these on eBay pretty cheap. I think like $15 a car. And keep in mind, these are pretty hard to find. These came out a number of years ago. So what I pretty much did with these was I sprayed a grime coat all over the sides to dull down that bright aluminum finish. Added the real safety tape, lots of grime on the underbody, lots of coal dust and spillage and things of that sort. That's all achieved with black powders, just very carefully sprinkled on the sides and then just brushed down simply like that with a fine tip brush like this. All the patching is stock, weathered the trucks and wheels of course, new KD couplers, and then lots of grime and kick up on the ends and underbays, all built up there on those little parts of the car. Lots of splatter on the rotary coupler end, and then on this side again, lots of that fine coal dust, lots of that fine dot work, makes it look really nice. A little bit of splatter there. So that's a pretty simplified weathering for these cars, but I'm trying to keep them relatively simple until I get into some more complicated patch out cars that I want to model and go into a lot more work with. All the interiors are weathered as well. This one's just temporarily fitted with the crappy looking Trainman coal load. But you get it with a car, it's what you pay for. It's not bad for what it is. Anyways. This next car is a CEFX patch out, and this one is weathered considerably heavier than the other CEFX car. It's a different paint scheme as well, as you can see, because they got a fleet of these cars over time, and a number of these are still in service, but it's kind of funny with these coal cars because they get bought out and then leased to different owners over and over again as railroads need them. With this one here, it was already pre-patched. All I had to do was, again, add all the heavy grime and coal dust, streaking, and splatter and everything to the sides. I modeled the little areas where they buffed off the aluminum sides and added new safety striping. You can kind of see that there if we reflect it off the light. I thought that was really cool. Again, weathered interior with the old stock coal load. Ends have the heavy weathering on them, new couplers, nice weathering on the trucks and wheels, as you can see. Heavy kick up on the ends. These get a lot of kick up, a lot of splatter. And then there's all the coal dust and splatter and streaking on the sides there with this one. We can look at that patchwork again. All that nice patchwork. All the work on the trucks. Scraping, splatter, stains on the ends there. And then of course that little bit of scraping as well, which is really cool. So all that again is done with oil work and acrylic work. You build it up in layers, and it uses this really nice rust tinted aluminum color, which is very common on these aluminum coal porters. So these have honestly come out really nice. So I have 2 more cars completed and ready to go into storage, awaiting the completion of the train. These next 2 cars I have here are OVR 64, or actually not 64, but 6000 series scrap guns. Excuse me. These are the more recent release of these cars that they offered, and this is the scrap version of the high capacity guns that are produced by NSC. And these 2 are MWCX cars, and I just pretty much weathered these according to prototype photos and how they really look these days. And one of the big focuses is modeling a lot of that rust chipping and peeling paint and things of that sort on the top cord. If I can get that in a shot here, you get a lot of that peeling paint, scrapes, and dents and dings and things on that top cord. While the sides are just starting to get that side scrape damage and things like that. These eventually will get very beat up, but right now they're in the baby stages of weathering. They got a lot of garbage juice and scrap metal debris and mud and grime and everything else splattered all over the sides. As you can see, a little bit of mud has been added, lots of mud and grime on the trucks along with the regular weathering. Underbodies have been weathered, of course. On the ends, lots of grime, kick up and everything like that. And then on this side as well, you can see the very fine stains along with some rust and things of that sort just starting to form on that top cord again. If you can see up there in that corner, it's just starting to build up, and then it's complemented with all those really nice stains. It looks fantastic, doesn't it? And then the trucks look really nice. Some people don't like the trucks on these cars, but honestly all the cars that I've gotten so far, the OVR guns, they've honestly rolled just fine for me. So I haven't had any problems with them. On the interiors, these are all weathered with acrylics and oils, and then I applied the powders and everything, and then I've added some real scrap debris, actually from a scrap gondola, by the way, and I added that to the interiors. I thought that was really cool. On this one here, pretty much the same process of weathering. I just added all the dents, dings, and scrapes, and scratches, and gouges, and dings, as you can see. Lots of little rust spots, lots of little pits, just starting to bleed out a little bit too in some more severe areas. This one has a pretty good rust impact there. That's all done with oil. And then you get all that little bits of staining and things, complementing the weathering work. And then on this side, again, you got all the nice rust streaking stains and things like that. Looks really good. I like those little rust dots. And as we go down the side, you can see the accumulation of that rust all over that top cord too. You got to get that top cord. That's very important. That's the most crucial area to weather on these cars, because that's going to be generally the heaviest impact area where loaders are going to scrape up against that when they're loading and unloading. And again, this one is weathered the same way as the other one, with the interior debris all nicely glued down in there with the weathering. It looks really fantastic. And then there's just a look at the underbody with all that exceptional piping and detailing. Just focused the weathering on the areas where it needed to be, like a coupler pockets, of course, and things like that. But in terms of the detailing on the ends, again, there's an example of some of that weathering, like pretty much the same example that I've shown on the sides, with a lot of that rust pitting and little dot techniques, things, and lots of oil rendering. Now this last car I got here is actually one I picked up from my friend when I went to Timonium. He got this car for me actually at, I believe it was, I forget what the train show is. I don't know if it's Amherst. It might be Amherst. I know that was just right before, I think it was the week before Timonium, the big train show where all the manufacturers were. He actually found this gondola for me there at booth for $20, and he picked it up for me. It's a relatively rare DJJ X paint scheme offered by Atlas, and I ended up making this car into a real masterpiece here, and we'll go ahead and talk about some of the details on this car. This is definitely a car I'm going to need to be up close and personal with, so I apologize. I had to take the camera off the tripod here. But if we take a look at the sides, I modeled all the little fine rust streaks and scrapes and gouges and everything like that on the sides of this car using a fine tip brush, a little bit of oil paint, and then a little bit of powders to enhance them. Add the safety striping and beat that up. A lot of scraped up decals. Very heavily faded DJJ logo, as you can see. It's faded and peeled away, and that's really cool. You got little bits of tag work, scribble, mud splatter, all that good stuff. And then this one is re-stenciled for COER, as you can tell. Lots of nice finely detailed parts that look like they're beat up, lots of rust. The trucks are nicely weathered, as you can see, of course, although they do need a little bit of mud, but that That'll come here in a little while. There's still parts of this car that I'm working on just to get it exactly right. For example, on the interior, you can see there's been a lot of work done on the interior to prep it with acrylics, oils, and then powders. But we still got to add some debris to the interior. But I did have the stenciling finished, so that's all done. On the ends, you got all the crazy amounts of scribble and graffiti. The CLER patch is done there, of course, and then the coupler and the air hoses painted and weathered. And then on this side, which is my favorite side, take a look at that logo. Isn't that crazy? My favorite part of this whole car. I was going to sell it, but it just came out so good that I decided to keep it. And I really like the graffiti. Again, that's all done with the Jelly Roll ink pens, lots of fine dot work, little bits of scribble here and there. The CLER re-stencil there on the side for the new owner. And then all of that fine rust work enhanced with those powders. And all the beat up safety striping, rust on the little placards there, and then all the rest on the trucks. Again, the interior is just waiting for some scrap metal debris, or rather just metal debris. These cars, I believe, generally haul steel coil wire, and so the sides don't really get bowed out, but they do get pranged up quite a bit, just like a regular scrap gondola, but they don't get as bowed as, say, a scrap gondola, where you have a lot of that weight pushing the sides out. So it's a subtle thing on this gondola, but it just came out really awesome. And it's really a good example of the current level of detail I put into these gondolas, especially specific prototypes. And I do see a lot of these CLER patched DJJ Gons pretty regularly. Matter of fact, I could probably use another if I can track down another one of these cars. But in time, I'm not in a huge hurry to build a fleet of these or anything. But I really did like the way it came out. Like I said, I was going to sell it, but then I decided to keep it because there's just some cars you do where they're hard to find. You put so much work into them that they just come out so good that you just can't possibly get rid of them. And I have enough cars to sell at this point that it's fine if I decide to keep one of them. And this is the one I decided to keep. So overall, I'm really happy with it. So that's all the completed models I have for now, guys. Those both the CLER Gons and all my other scrap Gons and some of the hoppers. And some other cars that I'm going to be working on in the future here are going to be some of these guys. I got this Chattahoochee boxcar is patiently waiting its turn to get worked on. Got these guys here that are waiting to get worked on, a PLCX grain car that I got to work on, a CSX SD60, that's going to be one of my personal units. And then I just recently picked up one of the new BNSF reefers. Really, really cool. I've been waiting for these. Although I hear some quality issues with them. Apparently some people are having issues with the trucks, so that might have to be something I'll have to look into. But this one will be proto-weathered, graffiti, of course. And then I did also get my first Aurora Miniatures gondolas. I've passed these up till now, until I went to the train station in Columbus, saw one of these, and was like, okay, I'm going to just at least get one of these. But I'm really waiting for the undecorated, all-black, data-only cars, because I want to do some of the ATW versions of these Gonex cars, because those are really nice. And then that's just the box with the Dash 8, which will hopefully be wrapped up here. Some of these cars might not make it to the next video because I might have already sold them, but I'm going to try to make a video on the stuff that I am going to sell, hopefully for you guys. And then I'll give you an update on this Dash 8 possibly too, in picture form on my Facebook page and Instagram. For any of you guys wanting to follow me on my social media is Daniel Arnold. That is me on Facebook. You can follow me there, send me questions, any kind of help I can give, I would be happy to. And then on Instagram, it's Dan E. Dankinson. That is all lowercase. And you guys can look at me up there and see all kinds of pictures of things that I'm working on and what's to come next. So I want to thank you guys for watching this video. Subscribe here on YouTube for more content like this, more updates, and how-tos coming. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.